Hey guys, welcome back to Reserved Investments on YouTube, and welcome to part 5 of my 6,000 subscriber Q&A series. We're going to get right into the questions because we got a lot of ground to cover, and there's going to be many more Q&A series coming because I didn't realize how many in-depth questions I've got asked. First question, Sean, when do you personally realize it's time to take a financial loss? What is the last loss you took? How confident were you that it would be profitable and not a loss? Just curious. Because even as a level-headed investor, I find myself being either super bearish or super bullish, not really in between. Big fan here. Your answer on this would make my month. Well, prepare to have your month made. I just hope the answer lives up to the excellent question that you just asked. When you personally realize it's time to take a loss, it is either because the investment no longer is performing the way that you anticipate it, meaning the trend is no longer your friend, or you decided to go in a different direction. So there is no really hard, fast rule where I can say, well, you should dump this. But I will tell you, if you watched my video on sunk cost fallacy, that would give you some keys as to why we tend to hold on to things that no longer serves us. Whether it be a pair of pants that no longer fits, a toxic relationship with a significant other, or even an investment that is faltering. So there really is no hard and fast rule. You have to just have control of your emotions and understand that certain things in life don't work out the way that they were planned, and you got to let go and move on. Now, I am going to give you one example as to how I pretty much got slapped in the face with a stale donut by not taking my own advice. Back in the 1990s, I came across a collector who was pretty much cashing out of his collection of vintage toy robots, battery-operated toys from the 1950s and 60s, and he was set up at a local flea market, and we exchanged contact information, and I was able to buy his entire collection for like $5,000. And all I had to do was flip it then and there on the secondary market, and I would have made $6,000 or $7,000 and would have been able to walk away. Well, I was a little bullheaded back in the 1990s. I did not take my own advice that I give you guys all out on this channel free of charge when I should have. And this is one circumstance where I said, you know what? What happens if the price of this collection doubles, triples, or quadruples in value? I mean, with the profit I could make today, I could make 4 times that if I just put this collection away and let it sit for 5 or 10 years, let it get a little patina on it, pull it back out as a market fresh collection, and sell it for 4 or 5 times what I paid for it, rather than just taking the $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 profit and being done with it. So I made the disastrous decision to put that collection of vintage toy robots, space toys that were manufactured in post-World War II Japan in the 1950s and 60s in a back corner of a storage unit. And believe it or not, I actually forgot about the collection. 2010, 2011 rolls around when I'm suffering with celiac disease. I didn't know it was celiac disease then, but I would get a diagnosis in 2012, 2013. And I really needed to make a move on that particular storage unit because I was cleaning it out for that very reason. And I realized I made a mistake because the market really changed for a lot of the antiques and collectibles that were popular back in the 1990s. And 50s and 60s toy robots and space toys were no different. The market actually went down in value. So what do you think happened? I started selling that collection. I consigned it to auction. And guess what? I was lucky to just break even. So that is an example of me not taking my own advice and it me costing me. And if you want to know how much it cost me, you got to understand, back in the 1990s, I could have flipped that collection, made $6,000 or $7,000 on it, and put that money in an S&P 500 index fund. Do you know how much that would have equated to today in the year 2020 or 2021? I would have really quadrupled, if not 5 times the amount of money that I invested in an S&P 500 index fund, even with the 2008-2009 financial crisis being equated into that sum. So that is an example as to why I tell you guys you are better off taking short-term gains, short-term flips if you are speculating or investing in the overall antiques and collectibles trade, with few exceptions. Now, if you come across a historical item, for instance, I am a huge fan of proof gold coins. from like the early 1900s or the late 1800s. In many cases, if I come across a proof gold coin in uncirculated condition, there's only going to be a handful of examples out there in the market at any given time. So if I come across one of those coins and I choose to purchase it, that is something that I would have a hard time parting with, even if somebody came to me and said, you know what, Sean, I know you just paid $10,000 for that coin. I'm going to write you a check for $30,000 for it. Now, the reason for that is if I want that same proof gold coin again, there's only a handful out there. Most of them do not come up for sale that often. So if somebody did offer me that type of money, I would really have to weigh it and see what the market is doing at any given time to see if it's worth selling it and taking the profit, just because that particular item is extremely rare or scarce at best, and it also has a lot of historical significance. So I hope that answers your question in large. If you have any other follow-up questions, let me know in the comment section below. Next question. Hey, Sean, congrats on 6,000 subscribers. Thank you. Is it hard for you to separate your personal tastes from what you know will be financially optimal when dealing with items you are very emotionally interested in? I want to say yes or no. When I first started in the antiques and collectibles trade, when I was like 12, 13, 14, 15, yes, it was a little bit difficult because obviously, especially as a kid, I was attached emotionally to a lot of these items that I do collect and covet. Today, at the age of 44, I can tell you it is not that difficult, especially when you factor in the aspect that I am educated in business, economics, finance, and I'm also educated in how these markets work over the short term and over the long term. So if I buy something and I paid $50 for it and it goes up to 100 or 125, I have no problem flipping it in the marketplace, especially if it is a mass-produced item. So any type of video game, comic book, toy, Magic the Gathering card, Pokemon card, with few exceptions, I have no problem flipping those items for a profit. Even when it comes to vintage advertising, certain traditional antiques, some of those items, if they go up in value, I will flip them in the market. I'll take the money and I'll do something else with the money, whether it's invest in real estate, invest in financial assets, or even put the money in another antique or collectible that I like better. For instance, that's how my coin collection and my currency collection got to the point where they are six-figure collections now. A lot of my gains in video games, in comic books, in toys, and other pop culture collectibles, when I would sell something for a profit, what I would do is I would split the profit by 2, meaning I would divide it by 50%, and I would put 50% in S&P 500 index fund or another similar financial asset. Then I would take the other 50% and put it towards a rare coin or a rare piece of currency. As a matter of fact, that is really one of the secrets to my net worth at the age of 44. I was pretty much rinsing, repeating that same pattern, and it served me very well. That's why I get into debates and arguments with a lot of speculators out there that think they're going to somehow beat the gains of the overall stock market of real estate investing by buying Magic the Gathering cards, Pokemon cards, and holding them for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Meanwhile, the market right now for a lot of these collectibles is at all-time highs. It makes no sense, guys. If you want to speculate in this stuff short term, by all means do it. If there's certain items you want to buy that you do have an emotional attachment to, where it's not going to hurt you financially to hold on to them, by all means, you do you. But this idea that you're going to invest 40, 50 years in pop culture items, and a lot of those items are still going to have relevance, it does not hold water. These markets do not work that way. Go back to the 1980s, 1990s. Do your research. Go talk to Harry Rinker. Talk to Wayne Jordan. Talk to a lot of these guys who pretty much wrote the proverbial book on speculation and investing for antiques and collectibles. You know, I'm going to tell you a story. When I started out in the trade at the age of 12, when I started learning about antiques and collectibles, when I first came across Harry Rinker's work, when I first started reading articles written by Wayne Jordan and a slew of others, Terry Cobble is another person you guys should be exposed to. When I started reading their articles, I wanted to say, no, you're wrong. This will be the next big thing. And luckily, the mentors that I had at the time were able to show me point blank why it is never going to work the way I want it to in my mind. It's no different. You ever get into a relationship with somebody and you start to idealize the person and you almost put them on a pedestal? Then you get into a relationship with them and you realize, oh my God, this person is batshit 100% crazy to the point where I have no idea what I even ever saw in this particular individual. It's almost like that. And some of you guys out there, I'm going to use this term, are so blue-pilled when it comes to investing in antiques and collectibles. You don't see the forest through the trees. There's a lot of red flags that are glaring you right at the face. And rather than look at it for what it is, a Chinese Communist parade, you want to make it out to be the next big thing. Again, I'm going to repeat this once more, then we're going to go on to another question. These markets do not operate the way you think. 30 years ago, no one could have predicted that Pokemon, Magic the Gathering, even vintage video games, factory sealed vintage video games, would be selling for the sums that they are selling for today. There were no catalysts back then that predicted that. Okay, guys? If you go back and you study how these markets work, and even if you don't want to listen to me, there's tons of books that I've mentioned on this channel that you can pretty much buy very cheaply on Amazon. Hell, your local library may even have them, where you can literally go to the library, rent them out free of charge, read them till your heart's content. You can even send me horrible emails where you tell me it's BS and then return them back to the library, and all you would have spent is time to get enlightened on how these markets truly work. I've said this before. If you are investing in the antiques and collectibles trade over the long term, you must go after extremely historic markets or sophisticated markets like coins, currency, certain markets that have stood the test of time and have other variables that are making appealing to younger generations to the point where they say, you know what, that's a gold coin. It's historic, but it's also made up of an ounce of gold. I'm going to collect gold coins for that reason. That's what you guys should be looking for. Instead, you're going after comic books. You're going after video games. Well, every kid knows who Nintendo is. Every kid knows who Pokemon is. The problem is, not every kid is going to grow up to be a collector. And number two, even if they do grow up to be a collector, you don't know that they're going to want to collect Nintendo, Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, and comic books. Most of these market cycles that we are seeing are running on 20 to 40 year intervals. When you look at comic books, 20 to 30 years from now, the average kid is not going to relate to comic books the way someone of my age does, the way that a baby boomer relates to comic books in the year 2021. Learn from this. Next question. Hi, Sean. I know it's a case-by-case basis, but can you go over some very general guidelines of when to get something graded and when to not bother? Yes, the cost of grading should add significant value to the item you are thinking of getting graded. You know, somebody came to me and said, Sean, I'm going to get my copy of Super Mario 3D All-Stars for the Nintendo Switch graded by Wadic Games. And I'm sitting there thinking, dude, I probably have 15 to 20 copies of that game factory sealed sitting in my video game room right now because I was able to acquire them at $39.99 a piece while everybody else was rushing out on launch day thinking that that game was suddenly going to become rare and dry up simply because Nintendo announced, hey, after a certain point, we're not going to manufacture this game anymore. Let me let you in on a little secret, guys, and I don't know if you picked up on it, any of the videos that I did on that particular item. Every video game that Nintendo or Sony or Microsoft or Capcom or Konami makes, at some point, they're going to stop producing it. That should not be a major secret that gets you to hoard multiple copies of a video game. And this is why when people tell me, Sean, I'm going to grade that game. Okay, if you grade that game and it comes back in a 9.4 or 9.6 condition graded by WADA, you've lost your proverbial ass. The only way someone's going to pay a premium for a factory sealed and graded copy of Super Mario 3D All-Stars is if that game comes back in 9.8 condition, of course 9.9 or 10 condition. where you can flip that in the market. Some little Timmy comes along and goes, oh my gosh, look at the condition of that Super Mario 3D All-Stars. I'm going to pay a premium to get it. Not realizing Nintendo made roughly 10 million copies of that game, and it's being hoarded in mass at present time. The item is not rare. Now, do I think over time it's going to go up in value? Yeah. I think after it starts to disappear from store shelves, after it starts to get a little bit frothy, people are going to go, you know what? I wish I could get a copy of Super Mario 3D All-Stars. And that's when they may pay $80, $90 for a copy of that game. And you're going to have little Timmy the Speculator coming into the comment section. I made money on my Super Mario 3D All-Stars. No shit. That's the way that market works short term. I would not be investing in an item like that long term, and I sure as hell would not get it graded. Now, let's say that you have a modern era Pokemon card that is worth $10. Let's say that you look up the value of a PSA 9 or a PSA 10 of that particular card, and it's $20. Obviously, it is not worth getting that item graded, because sending the item to PSA, hoping you get a PSA 10, and waiting, what, 6 months to a year? Oh, I forgot, they're not even accepting submissions right now. But if they were, you'd be waiting 6 months to a year to get that back to flip it for what? $20 on the secondary market? It's not worth it. Most people out there do not understand grading, and they do not understand, exactly like your question is worded, how to know when to get something graded, when it does add value to the item. So I will be doing more videos on this particular channel on that topic alone. And we're going to start with a discussion on coins, comic books, then video games, then Magic the Gathering, then Pokemon. I'm going to cover all the main collecting categories that deal with third-party grading. So there will be videos that I am just starting to put in production that will be airing on this channel probably 6 months from now on when to know when you should get your collectibles graded. I'm actually going to do a whiteboard video where I talk to you guys about what to look for, what should be graded, what should not be graded, what are exceptions to the rules. So please stay tuned for that. Next question. Sean, first question. What was your thought process behind buying multiple copies of Stadium Events back in 1987? Okay, I did not buy multiple copies of Stadium Events back in 1987. I bought multiple copies of Stadium Events when they were being sold through FuncoLand stores in the late 1990s and the early 2000s. And I already know where you're going with this. You have stated in the past, most people considered the game to be worthless. Why in your eyes was it not worthless but worth seeking out? Because in the late 1990s, the internet was already starting to form, and you had sites like eBay already in operation, and you had collecting forums like Digital Press, and then later, Nintendo Age came along, and people were already showing an interest in collecting a lot of these coveted vintage video games. So back when eBay came along in 1995, I made a lot of money by going after pre-Nintendo video games and systems. So for instance, I would go to a flea market, I would come across an Atari 2600 with 10 games, and the seller would want 10 or 20 bucks for it, and I could immediately flip that on eBay for over $100. That's where I made a lot of my money back in the day. Well, it was easy to see where the trend was going. Obviously, if Atari was loved at that particular time, it was only a matter of time for Nintendo to start getting the same treatment from collectors, enthusiasts, and would-be speculators. Well, at this particular time, you could pretty much walk into a FuncoLand store and they had a want list feature where you could tell them, hey, I'm looking for these particular games. If you ever get them in stock, give me a call. Well, what I would do was I would grease the wheels of making those type of deals with store managers where I would tell them, hey, for every one of these games on my list that you get me, I'll spend an additional $100 in your store. Well, back then, you could get Stadium Events if you could find it. It was a scarce game, obviously, but if you could find it, you could get it for under $5. So naturally, when a lot of these stores, especially in the King of Prussia, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, when they would get a game like that in stock, I'd be the first person they would call because they had to hit several metrics to make their numbers so that they would get a bonus. So a lot of these FuncoLand managers love the fact that all I would do is I'd give them a list of games that I wanted. When they would come in, they would call me, and I would spend hundreds of dollars in their store, and then I would, of course, also buy those games. That's how I got a position of anywhere from 10 to 12 copies of Stadium Events. And a lot of people ask me, do I regret selling those games? Absolutely not. I would do it again because I was already making on that $5 investment. I was flipping some of those games literally just 5 or 6 years later for $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a piece. And all that money went into mutual funds. So I hope that answers your question on that. Again, I've said this before on this channel. The trend is your friend around the bend until it ends. I believe Rudy with Alpha Investments also has said that. And so has Graham Stephan, if you watch his channel that deals with finance and real estate investing. So that is a known statement. Your next question is, how would you suggest someone who makes around $50,000 a year build wealth? Should they invest in things like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, real estate, or should they focus on career and salary growth first? Okay, this is a great question. Now, I'm going to tell you one of my major mistakes in life. One of my major mistakes in life, and it's kind of a double-edged sword. I was never dependent on a corporation for my livelihood because obviously I do work in the antiques and collectibles realm. I obviously know how to invest in antiques and collectibles. I'm also a very good investor. I don't mean to toot my own horn. When it comes to financial markets, when it comes to real estate, when it comes to building businesses, I understand all that very well. The biggest mistake I made, though, was I was always passive in my formal career. Now, this has come to a head because last Thursday I was called into an emergency meeting, and I think I can state this on this channel because pretty much 165 people were affected by this announcement, where my superiors told me that, and everybody else, that at the end of December of this year, we will no longer be employed by the company. They're going to outsource everything down to Georgia, which, okay, I'm fine with that. But unfortunately, I feel very sorry for a lot of my coworkers, a lot of the people who I know have not have been as financially successful as I have been. And that's really what my heart breaks for. I'm not worried about myself. I have multiple college degrees. I get offers from companies in finance all the time, where if I wanted to break away from my corporate job right now, I could pretty much find a job that's paying me $20,000, $30,000 more a year tomorrow. I can show people the offer letters on that. The thing is, though, I've always been very passive in my career, where my thinking is the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't know. And this has really costed me in the form of salary through my corporate job. So my best advice to you would be, where I'm going with this is, I would not put all your eggs in one basket. If you work for a company, I would not stay there more than 2 to 3 years. I would literally work that job, do the best you can, try to get ahead, be very aggressive in your career, not passive. And if you do get promoted, by all means, weigh that promotion, but always keep your options open. In other words, always be prepared to cut the cord because there is no loyalty anymore. You know, if you research what company I work for, and I'm not going to state this in this video because it's kind of unfair. I don't want to do that because, again, they did give me a career for the last 11, 12 years. I'm very thankful for the people and the time that I've worked at that organization. I just want to state that. But what I will tell you is this company is known to do that. And we all should have seen it coming because they're known to engage in corporate layoffs. They're known to cut salaries. They're known to do a lot of things that, unfortunately, some people would consider unethical, but they are all par for the course when we look at corporate America, when we look at maintaining company profits. So my best advice to you is if you truly want to build wealth and you are dependent on a salary, and if you are in your 20s, possibly in your 30s, you most likely are dependent on a salary, I would tell you to take the reins of your own action and switch jobs every 2 to 3 years and make it work for you. Don't allow companies to take advantage of you or dangle a carrot in front of you and say, you know what, if you do this, you can go for this position. And maybe, just maybe, along with that 50 cent an hour raise we gave you, we'll give you that position. You want to be in the predicament where you can say, look, I know what I have. I know what I got to offer. I have 3 other job offers here. If you want to keep me, this is what I need from you for me to stay employed at your organization. And if you do that, you, my friend, will be, at best, a sigma male or an alpha male, and you can take the bull by the horns and go, you know what? I deserve better. And that's exactly what I would tell you to do if you want to build wealth. Now, let's talk about the build wealth equation in general. What I will tell you is the earlier you start investing in stocks, mutual funds, index-based funds, even real estate, the better off you will be. I know there's a lot of critics of this channel. Sean, I'm putting all my money in Pokemon cards. Sean, I'm putting all my money in comic books. Sean, I'm putting all my money in factory sealed graded video games, and I don't care what you say about that market. And I just laugh at these people and go, okay, when I was 18, I started investing in mutual funds. That's why at the age of 44, I'm going to say it, I know some of you guys are going to hate me for it, I own a Rolex and a Mercedes. Guess what? Time is your greatest asset when you are younger. And I know a lot of people that watch this channel who are in their 40s like me, or even in their 50s, or even in their 60s, every time I say that, I sense that they're shaking their head along in agreement with me commenting on this particular channel. So please understand, if you want to build wealth, start early, do it often, rinse, repeat, and take control of your personal life. It's no different if somebody comes to me and they say, Sean, you know, I'm really in love with this chick. She's been my girlfriend for 3 years. She's cheating on me. I found out that she had sex in a bathroom with 3 different men. She tells me that she's sorry and she wants to work it out. Then the dude takes her back. 2 months later, she's cheating on him again, or vice versa. If you're a girl watching this channel, maybe you're in a relationship, a toxic relationship with a guy. It's the same advice I give. You gotta cut the cord. You gotta take the bull by the horns and say, you know what? How did I get into this toxic relationship? What am I attracted to? What's my attachment style? That's pretty much how you have to have that level of critical thinking to analyze why you are bringing either toxic jobs, toxic women, toxic men, toxic significant others, whatever it is, into your life. So my main point with this is take control. That's what I'm trying to get you to realize. Start young if you want to invest. If you do get into a career, you earn $50,000, $60,000 a year, guess what? You can do a lot better. I assure you, I don't care what city you live in most cases, you can make more than $50,000 to $60,000 a year. Trust me, I assure you, because now that I've put out feelers, now that I know that I'm going to lose my job, I know how much money I can realistically make. I want to stay on until December 30th or December 31st with my job because they're giving me severance and they're giving me a retention bonus. That's the carrot that they're dangling in front of me, where I'm saying, you know what? I was going to leave anyway, most likely. I'll gladly stay until the 31st, do what you want. Take that money, walk away, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for the opportunity to work for that fine organization. You know, I'm very proud that I had 11, 12 years at that company. I own their stock. I love the concept. I love what they do. So it's not like I had any ill regard towards them. I just think that certain people there do treat other people very badly. And as a result, I really think at some point karma is going to come back around and it's going to slap those people in the face, much like being slapped with a stale donut at 1 o'clock in the morning when you realize that you're pissed drunk, puking on the bathroom floor. That a good analogy there? Good. That is going to conclude part 5 of the 6,000 subscriber Q&A series. I will tell you, part 6 is going to drop soon, along with some original content that I have planned. Thank you for watching. I hope you do enjoy my unique perspective on a lot of these topics, even if we talk about careers, relationships, investing, whatever it is. It doesn't just have to always be antiques and collectibles. Thank you guys for watching, and I value all my subscribers and all my viewers.